Vecna is not the final villain, and you're probably thinking it's Will or the Mind Flayer, right? But here's the real question. Do you actually know what the Mind Flayer truly looks like? The only clue we have is that it shapeshifts into a gigantic spider form, but what if there are hidden clues throughout the show revealing what the true villain actually is, and even a possible redemption arc for Vecna? That sounds absolutely crazy, but let's dive into it. First off, let's start with why Vecna might not actually be the final villain. And this comes straight from Noah Schnapp, who plays Will. He said in one of his interviews that Vecna is actually one of the most misunderstood characters in the entire show. Everyone sees Vecna as this heartless, brutal villain who enjoys killing and destroying lives. But we're so quick to forget that Vecna was once a small boy who simply perceived the world differently. And you can't blame him for that because he didn't create himself or ask to be born this way. Henry Creel was born with a burden he couldn't name or explain to anyone. He was different from his cheerful mother Virginia and his innocent sister Alice in ways that isolated him completely. From a young age, he felt profoundly disconnected from everyone around him, seeing the world as a pointless, chaotic lie covered by a thin veneer of false happiness that everyone else seemed to accept without question. He craved order and control and a truth deeper than the superficial norms of human existence that felt so empty to him. His true nature was fully exposed after a shocking incident in a cave system detailed in the first Shadow, where he vanished for 12 hours and nobody could find him. When Henry finally returned, he was no longer just a troubled boy. He was corrupted and fundamentally changed by something beyond human understanding, the Mind Flayer. He had touched a raw dimension, the Upside Down itself, and in doing so, he gained his formidable psychic powers that would define the rest of his existence. This power wasn't a gift or a blessing. It was a terrifying curse that amplified his existing feelings of superiority and alienation while allowing him to pierce the minds of others and see their most shameful secrets and darkest thoughts. Now that brings us to why Vecna isn't actually the real villain behind everything. Vecna or Henry Creel didn't create the Mind Flayer from nothing. He only gave this ancient entity a physical, organized form. The Mind Flayer, which we call the Shadow Monster, already existed long before Vecna ever stepped foot in the Upside Down. It was waiting there in the darkness for someone to shape it into something terrifying. Vecna's role is really just the strategic commander working under the Mind Flayer. He brings the human intelligence and malice from Henry Creel that allows him to devise complex plans like opening the four gates, targeting specific trauma victims, and weaponizing the psychic hive mind. But he's carrying out orders for something far more ancient and powerful. Dustin already hinted at this when he called Vecna a 5-star general. A 5-star general might command armies and make tactical decisions, but they're still answering to someone higher up in the chain of command. Here's the thing that makes Vecna's story even more tragic. He's actually a twisted, corrupted version of 11, and essentially a puppet being used to destroy the very group trying to save the world. The Demogorgon that first appeared to him became his so-called friend in that cave, but it was never really a companion or ally. It was only a messenger sent by something far more powerful and sinister. And let's not forget, we're talking about a traumatized kid here. Remember that chilling moment when Henry wouldn't step into the cave where Max hides? And the real reason is honestly shocking when you understand the backstory. Max is trapped inside Henry Creel's mind world and she keeps desperately trying to escape, but Henry finds her every single time and hunts her down relentlessly. Yet when she hides in this cave area that looks completely normal and unremarkable, Henry suddenly stops cold. He freezes in his tracks and he actually looks genuinely scared. The first time we've ever seen real, raw fear on his face, and that cave becomes Max's one safe spot where he absolutely will not follow. So why is Henry terrified of this seemingly ordinary place? The stage play, the first Shadow explains everything, and it's heartbreaking. Henry Creel wasn't born with supernatural powers. When he was just a kid living in Nevada, he wandered into a cave system and disappeared for 12 horrifying hours. During those hours, he accidentally crossed over and entered the Upside Down, where the Mind Flayer found him vulnerable and alone. It corrupted him there, gave him terrifying telekinetic abilities he never asked for, and linked him permanently to the hive mind. That experience was pure, unfiltered trauma that changed him forever. He returned to the real world fundamentally different and broken. That's when Dr. Brenner discovered him and turned him into the very first Hawkins lab test subject, stripping away whatever humanity he had left. Max's hiding cave is most likely the exact same cave Henry first entered all those years ago, the birthplace of his fear, his trauma, and his unbearable pain. That place hits him in a way nothing else can because it shakes the very foundation of his twisted mind, and that's why he refuses to go in. Another huge reason why Vecna can't be the real final villain is simple. Killing him at the end because villains are supposed to die right would leave way too many critical questions completely unanswered. If the Duffer Brothers simply ended the entire show with Vecna's death after 5 seasons of build-up, there would be a massive gaping plot hole that fans would never stop talking about. What happens to the Mind Flayer, since Vecna only shaped and controlled that ancient entity but didn't create it? His death might actually set the colossal primordial force completely free to wreak havoc without anyone directing it. What about the hive mind network that connects everything in the Upside Down? Vecna's death might release all the remaining Demogorgons and Demobats from centralized control, turning them into unpredictable, rampaging threats with no one to command or stop them from tearing through Hawkins and beyond. And what about Will's disturbing drawings from earlier seasons that showed things he couldn't possibly know? Visions that felt like warnings about something even bigger and darker than Vecna himself? All of these loose threads point to one undeniable truth. Vecna isn't the source of everything. He's a weapon, a general, a corrupted puppet carrying out orders from something far older and more terrifying. This leads us to the real question that's been hiding in plain sight the entire time. Who or what is the actual true villain pulling all the strings? But before we continue, like and subscribe, or the Mind Flayer's making you its next puppet. Now back to our real villain, the First Shadow. The First Shadow is the 3-headed dragon lurking inside the Upside Down hive pulling all the strings, and the clues have been there since the very first episode. It all began in episode 1 when the boys sat down and played Dungeons and Dragons, and the Duffer Brothers have been using the creatures the kids fight in their games as a progressive roadmap for the entire series. Season 1, they fought the Demogorgon. Season 2 and 3, they battled the Mind Flayer. Season 4 brought them face to face with Vecna, but the very last monster the kids defeat in the final scene of Season 1 is the Thessal Hydra, and that detail is absolutely crucial. Because the show has followed this pattern so meticulously for years, the Thessal Hydra likely represent the final, ultimate monster they'll face in Season 5. It's been foreshadowed from the literal beginning. Though it seems like the Thessal Hydra in Stranger Things will most likely show up as a massive 3-headed dragon. This 3-headed dragon represents the final form of the Mind Flayer after it's fully unleashed and reaches its complete devastating power. The Mind Flayer is primarily a vast consciousness that needs a physical avatar to operate and destroy things in the real world. Back in Season 3, that avatar was a giant spider made of dissolved, melted human bodies, which was already terrifying. But the final upgrade is coming in Season 5. After Vecna opens the final massive gate and tears reality apart, the Mind Flayer will likely construct an even more powerful and horrific body. One that matches the destructive apocalyptic force of a 3-headed dragon. It's the same ancient entity, but now it's wearing new armor, a suit of terror designed for total annihilation. Will also drew this exact 3-headed dragon in his visions. His drawing isn't just random art or a scared kid's nightmare. It's a symbolic illustration of the entire upside-down leadership structure that the party must somehow conquer to win and save everyone. The name Thessal Hydra is simply the D&D name the kids give to this final combined threat, the true form of the evil that's been hunting them all along. Lastly, let's shift gears and talk about something that sounds absolutely crazy: Vecna's possible redemption. Yes, he's done the absolute worst things imaginable, and we all know his body count and brutality, but does the puppet deserve even a tiny bit of mercy given what we saw in Season 5, Volume 1, showing that Vecna still has a small fragment of conscience buried somewhere inside? Here's what's fascinating. We know Vecna is merciless and brutal, but he actually spared Joyce when she attempted to block his way, playing the protective mother role and willing to die for her children. Yet Vecna, who could easily kill her with just a slight gesture or stretch of his hand, refuses and instead just knocks her unconscious. But why would he show restraint when he's killed so many others without hesitation? The answer lies hidden in a flyer from the memory sequences. Remember when Max was telling Holly about the first time she entered Vecna's memories and saw November 6, 1959? Back then, Joyce was handing out flyers at school to promote her play. And if you look closely at the bottom of that flyer, you'll see the name Henry. That's Vecna before he became the monster we know today. Calculating from the timeline, Vecna moved to Hawkins with his family 14 years after World War II ended, which was exactly 1959, and everything falls into place now. As a child, everyone saw Henry as a freak and isolated him because he was different and strange, so his desperate parents took him to a new place to start over fresh, and that place was Hawkins. It was here that he met Joyce Byers, and she was the only person who didn't isolate or fear him. Instead, she genuinely reached out and cast him in her school play, giving him a moment of belonging. That rare moment of human acceptance could have formed an indelible bond in Henry's heart, explaining why the monster he became still spared Joyce decades later. And you know Joyce and her enormous heart. What if there are genuine chances of her trying to redeem Vecna from the monster he's become? Someone needs to remind him of who he used to be before the corruption, just like how Robin and Mike helped Will embrace himself and his identity. If that truly happens, it will be both satisfying and unsatisfying for different fans. But given Will saying Vecna is misjudged, maybe we should give this tragic villain a chance at redemption. So, we've come to the end of our video. Guys, what's your take on all these? Let us know in the comment.